Hi, welcome to another edition of Seven's Pinball-orama. If you're wondering why it's so loud where I am right now, come here, I'll show you. It's because we're at the 11th annual Pacific Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. So there's like 400 some odd machines here. There's old EM machines. There's brand newer machines like Houdini. There's arcade machines. There's everything. So let's go around and take a look. So this is the row of the EM machines: Cleopatra, Gigi, Target Pool, Slick Chick, Crosstown, Flip-A-Card, 2001, Foursquare, Four Roses, Sure Shot, World Beauties, Buccaneer, King Cool, Flying Carpet, Grand Slam, Fire Queen, Wild Wild West, Kingpin, Top Card, Sure Shot, Team One, Captain Fantastic, Skylab, Custom Made Galaxy Girl, only half $500,000, Crescendo, Aztec, Countdown, Lucky Hand. I'm in heaven. Gottlieb, 1972 Grand Slam. I love the painted back box on this one. It's cool. Any game with roto targets is okay with me. So there's some custom machines here too. I have one that's in a Pinball 2000 cabinet. I haven't played it yet because someone's already been playing it. Giant Hercules! Come on. Atari Hercules, giant machine, uses a pool ball, billiard ball, for the pinball. And one of the really cool things about this is that a lot of pinball machines, you slide the glass out and you tip the thing up. This thing is so big that there's actually a hatch underneath. You gotta climb under it like you're working on a car.
Atari Hercules doesn't get a whole lot of love in the pinball community just because it's kind of a big dumb machine. But it's almost 8 feet deep, and you gotta respect a machine of this size. It probably wouldn't be the best machine to have if you were only going to have one pinball machine, but if you run across an Atari Hercules, you have to play it. You just have to.
So I tracked down Dan, and Dan, you've been with the pinball show, the Pinball Arcade Show, for quite some time now, haven't you?
Since it began 11 years ago. 11
years. So how many machines did we have this year?
It was our highest ever, and it was 462, I think. There's a lot of games to haul here for one weekend.
And you were telling me earlier that you actually had to turn some away.
Yeah, there was more games showed up than were expected. We have drivers that people sign up games ahead of time, and we go and pick up collections from people's houses. But a bunch of extra games ended up on the trucks, and a bunch of people ended up showing up with games. They're squished between the men and women's bathrooms and over by.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of late 80s, early 90s machines. Got a bunch of EMs over here. On this side, Rescue 911, Austin Powers, Skateball, got that one. Royal Rumble, yeah, I got one of those. Spectrum, got one of those. Waterworld, Evil Knievel, Tarragon, Pinball Pool, Countdown, Nip It, Capersville, Gridiron, Jack in the Box, I got one of those. Misso, Darling. Hey, there's more over there too. So one of the fun things about pinball machines is if you have pinball machines, you already know this, they don't always stay running. And so what's your name?
Tim Leonard.
So Tim is one of the techs here at the show, and you've been working on this one for about an hour now, haven't you?
We had lunch. I just got back from lunch.
So what's going on with this one? Oh, burnt coil.
Old new. Sometimes switch gets stuck and they just sit there and cook.
Right. So you have we talked to a couple of the Pinball Medics that were here.
Right.
So how many? This is a big show. A lot of machines, a lot of people, a big venue. How many? These are all volunteers, right?
Yeah. It's a non-profit show. Everyone's volunteering their games. Everyone's volunteering their time.
And how many of like the Pinball Medics, like how many people in all does it take to put on a show of this size?
It's about 100 volunteers. From the people that are volunteering games, working the door, working, fixing games, running the different sections here. Yeah.
That's amazing to me. Okay, so we're here with John, and John, you brought games.
We brought 5.
You brought 5
We
games.
brought 5 tables.
So what ones did you bring?
So we brought Johnny Mnemonic, The Shadow, Jurassic Park, World Cup Soccer, and our brand newly acquired Indy 500.
And you spent a while like cleaning these up and fixing them up, so they're. I mean, you just didn't grab them out of your basement and haul them in, right?
No. So we were waiting for the right opportunity to fix soccer. So soccer was in parts in our garage for, I don't know, 2 months, waiting for new stuff to come in, ramps from Australia, bits and bobs, pieces and things. And then in about 4 days working, I'd get home at 9 o'clock from my job, so we worked about 4 in the morning, 4 days straight, rushing through Indy. And it looks great, but I'm exhausted.
And then I just heard that you had a problem with one of them.
Yeah, so the Johnny Mnemonic was a table we didn't get too long ago. We did a bunch of work to clean up the playfield, but we didn't really look at the electronics, and whoever had it before us did kind of a bad job putting one of the components on the table, and so the solder came loose and the part kind of fell off and the table stopped working.
I need a computer.
But they're in there now putting the part back on, and everything should be fine once it's back together.
Right. That's actually the cool thing about this show is that they have this whole center sort of a staging area where they have a bunch of techs on call and they just run them out to each game. Since we've been here for a couple hours, I've probably seen like 6 people kind of working on games.
It's nice when you spend so much time fixing up your tables to know that they really take care of them here. It's a lot easier to donate them for that reason.
Yeah. And is this the second year you've done this?
This is the second year we've donated tables, the third year we've come to the show.
Okay. Right.
Last year we donated our black hole and we had a roller disco. I don't know, and maybe 1 or 2 other. Soccer was here, and maybe the Shadow was here too.
Right. Cool. Well, I appreciate what you do. I mean, shows like this, they don't happen without people like you. So I know this isn't pinball, but I loved this game when I was a kid.
So besides Red Baron, one of my personal favorites when I was a kid, they had a lot of the arcade classics like Space Invaders and Galaga and Mr. Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man and Q*bert and R-Type. They had a lot of really cool black and white Atari machines as well.
So, of course, a bunch of arcade machines, and I run into Brad. Brad's opening Capital City in New Westminster.
Yes, I am, finally. Sure, you can have that. No problem. Although that was my kids, but oh well.
So, you're opening this year?
Yeah, we get the space this Friday coming up, actually, but 2 or 3 months build out, so the fall.
And how many machines are you going to have in that space?
It depends on how many machines you're going to help me with, but we're hoping a total, to start with, maybe 75, but we probably have a room for over 100.
Nice. And you're going to have food. Wait, the way I understand it, you can't do beer right now?
We can't do any alcohol yet, but after a 6-month review, then we possibly can. And you're doing food, yeah.
And you had a little bout with New Westminster, which took a while.
We had a 2-year bout with New Westminster, but we also went to pretty much every other city in the Lower Mainland, and they were all pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
So you had a 5-year?
We have a 2-year temporary use permit that gets renewed after 2 years, or they'll change the bylaw. But the city council was all for it, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal to change the bylaw for us. Yeah.
Cool. And so, looking around at all these machines, what's your favorite?
I haven't played a single machine yet, other than some Pac-Man with my son. Probably one of the 3 I just bought. I got to add more to the library. I bought a 6-gun shootout, which is a later game than what I have, because I have all 70s and 80s. It's an early 2000s game, but it allows you to put in older shooter games. So it's like a Wild West gun shooting game.
Okay.
But you can actually put Mad Dog McCree 1 and 2 in it as well. It does multi-games. So, and Mad Dog McCree is a game I've been looking for 25 years, and I've never found one. So this is a way I can get it finally.
So this is a really unusual game. This is 1982 Orbiter 1 by Stearns. They only made about 900 of these things. It's got a curved playfield. It's not flat. And instead of pop bumpers, it's actually these little spinning like rubber pucks. And the ball just kind of goes crazy. It's kind of fun. Unfortunately, with this one, it looks like one of the flippers is out, but let's play a little bit of it and see what it's like.
Orbiter 1 is a game that's very similar to Hercules, is that if you only have one pinball machine in your collection, you probably don't want Orbiter 1. But if you ever run across one, definitely give it a play because it's a unique gameplay experience. The ball movement is very bizarre. It's definitely a one-of-a-kind machine. As a testament to the people putting on the show, I went over to the tech booth after I was playing, said, hey, you've got a flipper on Orbiter 1. And I came back about an hour later and it was working again. So these guys do an amazing job keeping the machines up and running.
Hi, what's your name? It's a microphone. I'll call you Darla. Can I call you Darla? Hey, look who we ran into. It's Jason from I Suck at Pinball.
Hi guys. How you doing?
So this is interesting. Turn around, Jason. Awesome. Cindy? Debbie? So, what's your name?
Walter?
Walter?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Theo?
Theo. So, you guys having a good time at the show?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What's your favorite game so far?
Gridiron.
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 You too? Gridiron? Okay, this is Gridiron. This is Walter and Theo approved pinball machine, but it's not a pinball machine, it's actually a pitching bat. So I probably would be better if I had another person to play with, but we'll take a look at it anyway. Are you playing pinball today? I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm pitching and batting. That's what I'm doing. Is this something that you want to come to next year?
Yes.
And the year after that?
Yeah.
Yeah? And maybe have your own pinball machine one day?
Yep.
Big fan of pinball, this one. I'll let her get back to her game. So how did this whole thing get started? Because you were there early on. So how did it go from what, just like a couple guys with some machines to 100 people?
Yeah, it actually started in a pizza parlor, and it was just a group of local pinball dudes that did like a one-day tournament and event in a pizza parlor up in Oak Harbor. And I got involved the first year. They wanted to make it big. So they wanted to do it at the Seattle Center, and they got a room at the Seattle Center. And on our local pinball and arcade listservs, they were talking about it. And I saw the poster, and it was all text. And I was like, oh, this is not going to draw hundreds. That's when we were trying to get hundreds of people and 100 games. And I was like, that's not going to work. And I came from the punk rock scene where I did fanzines, I booked shows. I had a bunch of friends that were poster artists. And so I was like, let me help you in the way I can help, which is get a poster artist to design a cool poster, get sponsorship from like The Stranger and Shorties, and make it kind of like hip and cool, and network with a bunch of other collectors and get more games there. So that's how I got involved. And I've been doing the press promotions and sponsorships all along since then.
So not only could you come and play pinball and arcade machines, but there were vendors there that were selling bits and baubles and pieces and parts of various pinball and arcade. They had used equipment there. Marco Pinball was there. They had a bunch of new things. Stern was there, so you could buy a pinball machine. There was a vendor that had just tables, just rows and rows of ramps and plastic parts for pinball machines, which was pretty impressive. There was a company there called Fast Pinball, and they made the infrastructure if you wanted to make custom machines.
So I'm here talking with Aaron, and he's with Fast Pinball, and he makes the hardware that you can put inside your pinball machines.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's a good show. Our voices are already gone, so we're all here we're having a good time. We set up a whole space for the guys making custom games. Mike O'Rourke made the Proto One, and Brian Cox has the Steampunk Royale and his newest game, Jupiter Crush. So it's really a cool example of seeing like what you can do with our hardware. You know, these guys are coming at it from, you know, Mike's like a game designer, and Brian does all sorts of stuff. So it all comes together in a pinball artist kind of style.
And so the hardware that you provide is all of the back end of the pinball machine. So it's got like the MPU and the driver boards and everything else, or what is it?
It's the piece between the physical actions and the lighting and stuff like that and the CPU. So whatever computing device you would use to manage to run the game, we're the interface to make it physically do what you're supposed to do. So we've made a real simple, like, fast protocol interface that, like, you know, whether you're using the Mission Pinball framework, which these guys are using to control their games, or you're writing something from scratch in C or in JavaScript or something, all it needs to be able to do is make a high-speed serial connection, and you can control all the hardware that makes pinball pinball. So. Cool.
And so how many different devices with yours, like how many different individual devices can you drive? Because like some of the old machines, they had like maybe 64 devices of lights or kickbacks or whatever. So with yours, is it pretty much open-ended?
Yeah, I think there's probably a hard limit out there somewhere, but I think that like, you know, you can just keep pooling more and more boards together in this loop network and stuff. So like some boards are like 32 switches and 8 drivers, which gives you the control for your whole lower third, the flippers and ball trough and stuff. And then you just keep adding to that as you need it. But our controller board, it basically acts as the brain for this loop network of all these other boards you sum up to be your playfield. So I mean, a lot of times that gets to be like 80 switches and maybe like, you know, 16, 20 drivers, depending on your game design. And then our controller board actually will also control a 256 individual RGB LEDs. So that creates a pretty bright landscape of like different lighting and stuff like that you can do. And having the ability to change colors gives you a lot more control for actually, you know, showing game progress. It's not just a blinking light, it's heating up, it's getting hotter, now it's cooling off. You know, you can work in dynamics with lighting that you couldn't do before you had that control of lighting and stuff. So.
And you have some of the hardware laid out there. Can we go take a look at it?
Sure.
All right. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
So right here, basically, this is like what would be a large network of boards. You know, we actually set this all up as a test bay for when we're testing code and stuff like that. But so this is our Fast Nano controller here. So this is where you make a USB connection to this board from whatever computing device you're using. And it connects to a quad UART, which makes a dedicated connection. So that dedicated connection to our loop network is what handles all the switch inputs and the driver outputs and stuff like that. So that's dedicated. It's not getting flooded with lighting and stuff like that. That's a separate channel when you connect to the USB connection. So that way, like if you're sending a massive amount of fades and all these pretty lighting effects, you're not potentially missing a switch event or something like that comes through. So as you're going around the loop here, it comes out one end, gets down into the first board. In this case, it's 16-16. So it's 16 drivers and 16 switches. Goes into the 3208, which is 32 switches and 8 drivers, on down to some of the smaller ones, which are 0804s, 8 switches and 4 drivers. It comes all the way back around in a loop. So that way it's constantly maintaining its own state. So like if it had a configuration, say there was some hiccup somewhere, it's constantly rewriting itself to make sure that information stays correct. Then built in within this network, we have a watchdog loop that runs around to make sure that like no coil gets left on for too long of a period of time, and also some health maintenance and stuff we do within the network. So it's not just a matter of connecting all these things together, but there's actually some things that go on behind the scenes to make sure that like, you know, you're making a game that's like robust and strong enough, and is like, you know, as fault tolerant and protective as you can be, you know. So, and actually in this game up here, this is just showing like that lower third I was talking about. So again, you've got your ball trough set up, and that's going to be like, you know, 7 switches on its own for 6 balls and a jam switch. And then you've got your 2 flippers, your slingshots, and then in-lanes, out-lanes, and stuff like that. So really with that one board and then the Nano controller, you can get that lower third set up. So we've actually been able to make some like cut files and stuff like that, so you get the wood cut, make that work, so you've got these achievable goals, you know?
All right, so this is Jupiter Crush. This is a custom theme, and this is using the Fast Pinball interfaces. So let's try it and see how it is.
All space cadets, join our station.
What's your name?
Kaylee Delorier.
And is this your first time to the show?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And what do you think so far?
It's amazing and beautiful, and I love it, and I want to live here.
And so you guys did it at the Seattle Center for how many
5
years?
years?
5 years.
5 years, and we kind of outgrew the space, and that space now is where KEXP is. People were really bummed when we moved from Seattle to Tacoma, but it is so much cheaper here for a large space. It's a great space. It's a newer space. Parking's cheap. The hotels are cheaper here.
They have the power.
Power's cheaper. The load in is really easy. There's 5 loading bays right from the back. We can just roll the games right into the venue, that's big. Because load up and set up and tear down for an event like this with so many games it's a big deal.
When do you guys start loading in?
Thursday morning. We do it all in about 1 day.
And then you'll be out on like the end of Sunday night then?
Yeah. So we'll have hundreds of people, well, hopefully we'll have hundreds of people breaking down pinball machines and arcade games, wrapping them up. We have about 6 or 7 large semis and 16-foot trucks, and each truck's doing 2 to 3 runs out to different collectors' houses, bringing all the games back home. So it's a big operation.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love.
What's your favorite game at the show so far?
Favorite game? It's too many to choose from.
I know.
I don't know. I've got to get over and try the new ones.
Right. Do you lean more towards the older EM or the newer ones?
The newer ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm not a fan of the older ones.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not enough flash to them.
So of the newer ones, what's one of your more favorite of the like newer Stearns or something?
Hobbit.
Wizard of Oz is amazing.
Wizard of Oz.
It's
Wizard of Oz.
So Jersey Jack fans.
But yeah. So just all the newer games.
Right.
The ones with the flash.
It's one of the biggest, I think, probably on the West Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one down in California where the guy just has 800 games in one warehouse. For an event where all the collectors bring it and we just set up an arcade for one weekend, it's one of the biggest ones. And we're one of the 3 non-profit shows. Ours is all volunteer run. Any profit we make goes towards scholarships and a couple other charities that we give to, and that's kind of rare for large conference type events.
Well, it's an amazing effort and it's an amazing show. I love it. So congratulations for being able to pull something like this off. It's crazy.
It's always a miracle that it actually works out all right.
So this is Stearns' booth. So they have the new Iron Maidens, the Aerosmith. There's Star Wars down there, Batman 66. There's an AC/DC, so all of the newer machines as you would expect. Ooh, a Shadow. So this is a 1978 Williams Disco Fever. It's one of the 2 games that they tried to make. I think it was Time Warp or Time Zone or something like that. That they used the Banana Flipper song, which is kind of weird. So let's give it a shot. So, okay, I'll ask you one more question. Of all the machines in here, what's your favorite?
Oh, God. That is the worst question.
It is.
My favorite of the new machines this year, I think, is Houdini. I'm going between Houdini and Iron Maiden, because I was a Maiden fan, so. With the classic games, I kind of would pick more by era. I really have a hard time picking a favorite game, though. I'm a collector, too, and I have 25 games, 22 to 25. It's not Punchy the Clown.
He's yelling Punchy the Clown.
I have a lot of games. I can't really pick one out of them. And I collect both pinball and arcade games, and I like variety.
Well, I actually got stuck. I walked by and I saw Red Baron. I was like, oh my God, Red Baron!
I played the crap out of that game today because I remember that when I was a kid. I used to go to this like little arcade in Bellevue called Triple Alliance where they sold D&D books and lead figures because I was a D&D nerd. And then they had an arcade in the back. And that was the first time I played Black Knight was there. And they had a whole bunch of old Vector games. So it was like, but Battlezone and Red Baron, I played.
Probably
I was
Tempest, maybe?
yeah. And like Battlezone, I was always convinced you could make it to the mountains at the end. And same thing with Red Baron. I had a pretty good game on that. I got my initials up in like number 2 or 3 on that yesterday. I was excited for that.
We were filming and I just played one and I walked away. I had to walk away and do other things. But.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah. It's
And
good
we'll
talking to you.
we'll talk to you later and see you next year. And
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So this is the end of the show for me. It's late Saturday night. The crowds are starting to leave. They're going to be here tomorrow again. Of course, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, gosh, that's a really cool thing I want to go and see, you're going to be too late because I probably won't upload this till Monday. But yeah, 11th annual show. They've been doing this for 11 years now. I guess that's all I have to say. So I think it's time to pack up and leave, except for I got to play this first because I haven't played this yet.